All right, welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're going to talk about something you do every single day eat. But the story behind what's on your plate, well, it's an epic. A 10,000-year journey of innovation that took wild plants and completely redesigned them to feed the entire planet. So let's kick things off with the fact that, honestly, it might just change how you look at your next meal.
So get this. There are something like 30,000 edible plants out there on Earth. But our global diet? It's incredibly narrow. Just 30 species. 30 give us 95% of all our plant-based food. Now, on one hand, that's an amazing feat of engineering, right? But on the other, it makes our whole food system super, super fragile. So the big question is, how did our menu get so small and so specialized?
Well, to figure that out, we've got to jump in the time machine and go way back, like 10,000 years back, to the very dawn of farming. This is when our ancestors started this kind of quiet revolution. It wasn't fought with weapons, but with seeds. And it all revolved around a powerful evolutionary process called domestication.
I mean, just look at this. On the left, you've got teosynth. That's the wild ancestor of corn. It's small, it's grassy, and it has just a few rock-hard kernels. And on the right, that's the modern corn we all know and love. Now, this didn't happen by chance. Nope. This is the result of thousands of years of our ancestors picking and choosing plants with the traits they liked. It was this incredible co-evolutionary dance between us and the plants we wanted to eat. And you know, this whole process wasn't just about making things bigger. We were fundamentally re-engineering these plants from the ground up. Yeah, we selected for stuff like bigger fruits and more yield, but at the same time, we were actively breeding out their wild survival skills. Things like shattering, where the seeds just fall off on their own, we got rid of that to make harvesting easier. We basically traded the plant's natural toughness for human convenience.
And what came out of this process of domestication, was this really deep symbiotic relationship. We changed these plants so much that a lot of them, like modern corn, literally can't survive in the wild anymore. They need us to plant them, just as much as we need them for food. Our behavior evolved to grow them, and their DNA evolved to serve us.
Okay, so for thousands and thousands of years, all of this selective breeding was really more of an art, right? It was guided by intuition, by just watching what worked. But then, in the 1860s, an Austrian monk named Gregor Mendel came along and turned it all into a science. He's the guy who finally figured out the rules, the fundamental rules that govern the blueprint of life itself.
And the sheer scale of what Mendel did, it's just mind-boggling. Over 7 years, he meticulously grew and tested almost 30,000 pea plants in his little monastery garden. He wasn't just, pottering around. He was running one of the most important biological experiments in all of history, carefully tracking how specific traits got passed down from one generation to the next.
So here's the genius of what he found. When he crossed a purebred tall plant with a purebred short one, guess what? All the kids were tall. The short trait just vanished. But, and this is the absolute key, when he then crossed those new tall plants with each other, that short trait popped right back up in the next generation. And it did it in a super predictable 3-to-1 ratio. He just discovered that some traits were dominant while others were recessive, basically hiding in the genetic code, waiting to reappear.
And his work gave us these two critical concepts we still use all the time: genotype and phenotype. Think of the genotype as the underlying genetic code. It's the software, the instructions. The phenotype is the physical thing you can actually see, like whether the plant is tall or short. Mendel proved, for the first time ever, that the visible phenotype was controlled by that invisible genotype. This gave breeders a real, predictive, scientific framework to work with.
All right, so with Mendel's rules in hand, scientists finally understood how traits were passed down. The next big challenge? Figuring out what genetic diversity was even out there and where in the world to find it. And this quest, it was led by this incredible and ultimately tragic Russian scientist who basically created a treasure map for the entire world's food supply.
Let me introduce you to Nikolai Vavilov. You can think of him as the world's first great gene hunter. He was this brilliant agronomist and geneticist who had a really powerful insight. To build better crops for the future, you first had to go back to the past
You had to go out and find and collect all the wild relatives and all the diverse traditional varieties of our most important foods.
See, Vavilov had this amazing theory. He proposed that the geographic spot where a crop was first domesticated, what he called its center of origin, that place would also be the hotspot with the greatest genetic diversity. So he literally drew up a map pinpointing these key centers all over the world, like the Near East for wheat and barley, or Central America for maize.
And then he went hunting. He led these epic expeditions across 5 continents, and his team gathered one of the world's very first and most important seed banks. By 1940, his collection was just massive, a living library of genetic potential. We're talking over 36,000 different types of wheat, 10,000 types of maize. It was an absolutely priceless resource for breeders.
But here is the crazy paradox. The very success of modern agriculture, which used all this amazing diversity to create a few superstar crops that were super productive, that success started to create a brand new and pretty dangerous problem. Our vast genetic library, it started to shrink fast.
This process has a name. It's called genetic erosion, and it happens for a couple of big reasons. All over the world, farmers started replacing their unique local plants with these new, uniform, high-yield varieties. And at the same time, modern farming practices, habitat loss, and of course, climate change started wiping out the wild relatives of our crops. We were basically erasing thousands of years of natural genetic evolution.
So to fight back against this loss, scientists came up with 2 main strategies. The first is in situ conservation. In situ just means in its original place. This is about protecting plants in their natural homes, like in national parks. The second is ex situ, off-site, and this is about preserving genetic material away from its natural environment, in places like botanical gardens, and most importantly, in gene banks.
And following in Vavilov's footsteps, the global community has scaled this ex situ effort up in a huge way. Today, gene banks across the globe hold on to an incredible 7.4 million unique samples, or accessions, of crops. Think about that. Each one of those little seeds is a potential solution to a problem we might not even know we have yet. It's like a biological library of answers.
This incredible work is being done by a whole network of over 1,750 gene banks all over the world. These places, from national collections all the way up to the famous Svalbard Global Seed Vault, the Doomsday Vault in Norway, they act as humanity's ultimate insurance policy. It's our backup hard drive for our entire food supply.
So, why is this so important right now, today? Well, because that massive genetic library that we've worked so hard to save, that is the exact toolbox we are now using to design the resilient, sustainable crops we desperately need for our changing planet.
Right now, breeders are going back to these gene banks to find traits that were bred out of our commercial crops a long, long time ago. By crossing our modern varieties with their wild or diverse cousins, they can create things like climate-smart crops. Think drought-tolerant corn. They can develop legumes with super deep roots that actually improve soil health. They can even breed beans that naturally resist pests, so we need fewer chemicals. It's amazing stuff.
The father of the Green Revolution, Norman Borlaug, he understood the stakes better than anyone. This kind of work isn't just some abstract science project. He famously said, "Never think for a minute that we are going to build permanent peace in this world on empty stomachs and human misery." And he was absolutely right. Food security, which is made possible by all this genetic innovation, it's really the foundation of global stability.
So this incredible 10,000-year story, from just picking wild plants to literally editing their genes, it's far from over. We've gone from being accidental selectors to intentional designers of life itself. And that leaves us with a really big, really important question for our generation. After spending 10 millennia shaping our food, what should we ask of it next?